Now we're going to rush right to a new topic because when we start doing some practice problems, it's going to mix up whether we're doing standard or metric. So we'll look at both first and then actually do the practice problems. We've already seen in our history of measurement units a few of the metric prefixes. There was a kilogram, and that was 1,000 grams. Remember that a gram was defined as the weight of a cubic centimeter. So something that's 1 centimeter on a side, like a cube. If you filled that with water rather than empty plastic, that would weigh a gram. And that made sense as an amount of weight to use with chemicals in a laboratory. But that doesn't really help you measure real life things like backpacks or loads of, wagon loads of stuff or whatever. So you need thousands of them to be kilograms. We had a milliliter. It was 1 liter divided by 1,000. And we had a millimeter, which was a meter divided by 1,000. This classroom doesn't have a meter stick, but you've probably seen them because they're like yardsticks. And there's 1,000 millimeters. Our rulers will usually have millimeters as the little marks that are about as big as the width of your fingernails. And a centimeter is a meter divided by 100, like cents. There's 100 cents in a dollar. Milli is 1,000, like a millennium is 1,000 years. So there's a general pattern. We don't just have to do it with grams become kilograms. You could have kilo anythings. Kilo just means times 1,000. That's the only multiply one that we normally use. Then we have the plane unit. It could be a meter, it could be a gram, it could be a liter, it could be a watt. We have lots of different measurement units we use. If you look at your electric bill, there's kilowatts, because 1 watt.
Excuse me, sorry, is that what the small print?
Yeah, it says in this list, the unit is a placeholder for whatever the measurement unit we're currently using is. So a watt is tiny, so your electric bill has kilowatts on it. Centa is divided by 100, milli is divided by 1,000, and micro is divided by 1,000,000. And usually the only one we see micro with is grams, because if you're doing pharmacy work, then micrograms is how much medicine is in most pills. It will be very rare, especially in this country, to see any prefix in metric other than kilo, centa, milli, and micro. But these are actually part of a bigger pattern. So I'm going to show you that just so you are well educated. So starting on the left and working to the right, kilo is times 1,000. Then there's one called hecto times 100. Deca with an A at the end is times 10. Then whatever our plain thing is, the meter, the liter, the gram, the watt. Then 1/10 of it is deci with an I instead of an A. Centa and milli we talked about. For some reason, there's no name for the 10,000 and 100,000 place. No one ever uses that, so they never even bothered to name. And then micro is the millionth of something. So we don't use all of these place values, but that list is useful because of a shortcut. So now I can show you the shortcut because you have seen the whole list. But we don't actually care about hecto. We just care that it's part of the list. So what we're going to do is replace that list with just the initials. So K, H, D, unit, remember, is a placeholder. We're going to not write unit, at least long term. We're going to replace it with meter or liter or gram or whatever metric thing we're measuring. Then another D, you don't have to remember that one was deca and the other is deci. Just remember there's D's. C, M, dot, micro. And most students memorize a cute saying to remember this. something like killer hobos dance under dazzling crystal mobiles, something like that. Then the shortcut is that if I want to convert between metric prefixes, if I write this list, whatever decimal point scoots I need to do match how many steps I move in the list. Let's do a few examples because that doesn't make any sense when I say it out loud, but it will make a lot of sense if you see it. So how many millimeters is 2.8 centimeters? So at first we'll do this one the old fashioned way. And if I have 2.8 centimeters and I want to go into millimeters, the bigger one is the centimeters. Remember on my ruler that there's 10 millimeters in every centimeter. So I'm going to do a times 10 or a divided by 10. Which am I going to do going from the bigger thing to the smaller thing? Times. And so I'll do a times 10 and get 28. And because all of the metric things have tens or hundreds or thousands, it's always going to look like what I just did in red. Times 10 divided by 10 times 100 divided by something like that. We're just scooting the decimal when we do these. So here's what the shortcut says. Instead of trying to do things the way we just did earlier in class, or the way we just did on the top here, all I'm going to have to do is say we're starting with millimeters. I'm sorry, no, we're starting with centimeters. I can read. And we're going to millimeters. Let me make that not quite so. Let's see, we're starting with centimeters and we're going 2 millimeters. So all I have to do is scoot the decimal the same amount once to the right. We've done a whole bunch of decimal scoots with Riplop, so don't get confused. There's no percents anywhere near this page. We're not scooting because of Riplop. It's not always 2. This is a different decimal scoot. A calculator is 16 centimeters long, so we're starting with centi. We want to change this into meters. So that would be the plane unit is meters. And we want to change it into millimeters. So milli is that one. Everyone okay so far? If it helps, go back a screen or two and remember that this one is centa and this one is milli. So for the plane meters problem, we were going 2 to the left. So if I take 16 and go 2 to the left, I get 0.16 meters. With the millimeters one, then I'm starting here and going 1 to the right. So if I started here and 1 to the right, I would get 160 millimeters. Because remember, if I scoot kind of out into space, I need to put a 0 to make it work, right?
But otherwise, you'd have to go 16 times 1,000, or I'm confused, like the other way.
The other way, this would be a times 10.
Okay.
And this
Make
one
it into millimeters.
would be a divided by 100, right? Because
How do you remember that?
because there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Looking at the ruler, then there's 10 little marks between the centimeter marks. Or there's 100 centimeters in a plane meter, because that's what centimeter means, is there's hundreds of them in a plane thing. But the reason everyone else in the world laughs at Americans and British people is because we are still using this instead of metric. especially Americans. Okay, the backpack. A backpack weighs 6,480 grams. Where are we on this list? Which is grams?
The unit.
The plain unit. Very good. That's the hardest part of all of this. If we want to go to kilograms, so we're starting here, and we want to go to kilo.
3 to the right,
So 1, 2, 3. It is 3, but it's to the left.
or not right, left, goodness.
1, 2, 3. So we get 6.480 kilograms. Should I keep the 0? It's up to you. We know that much accuracy. We're not exaggerating. But it is true that 6.48 and 6.480 are the same thing, except for how much accuracy I am describing. A shampoo bottle contains 450 cubic centimeters. Change this to milliliters and liters. It's trying to trick you. Remember the cubic centimeter from our history lecture. Which volume thing was this equivalent to? How much space does one of these take up? You might not remember it because it was several days ago now, because it's Tuesday.
Like.
Milliliter. So one cubic centimeter is the same as 1 milliliter. Liters they capitalize, so it doesn't look like a 1. And I have no idea. Why do motorcycles and nursing use cubic centimeters and the rest of the world uses milliliters? I don't know, but that's how it is. So if you do motorcycles or you give people injections, then they talk about cubic centimeters, but all it does is mean milliliter. So if I want to change that to milliliters, well, that's just 450 milliliters. They're the same thing. You can't trick me. Cubic centimeters and milliliters are the same. If I actually want to change it into liters, well, I'm starting with the milli, and I'm going to my plain liters. So 1, 2, 3 to the left. So 1, 2, 3 to the left, I get 0.4 liters. It's probably a little going in one ear and out the other because you're just watching me. But once you actually do this yourself, then it will make sense. However many scoops I do on my pattern of initials, that's what I do with the decimal point. Was that all my examples? That is. Okay, time for us to practice. Not there.